Currently, he is an adjunct faculty at IISER and director CSC at Munjal University. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Dr. Sarabjot Singh with his valuable words.
Thank you for the very kind introduction. And thank you also for inviting me to give the talk here. It is indeed a pleasure to have the opportunity to speak to all of the distinguished guests and attendees of the conference. I hope you can see my, my presentation. Am I audible? Hello?
Yes, you're audible, sir.
Okay, great, great. And you can see my screen?
See your screen also.
Wonderful, wonderful. Okay, so what I want to talk about is some of the work that we've been doing in building momentum in AI and artificial intelligence in, and machine learning education in Punjab. But of course, prior to that, I also wanted to tell you a little bit about the kind of work that we do within my current organization, Tatras, which is a startup that I created. It fascinates me, having started in the space of machine learning in 1993, the amount of interest it is getting today in media. So we are all aware of the kinds of media titles of media stories that are coming out, where on one hand we are talking about Facebook shutting down robots that invented their own language. On the other hand, we are also hearing from the likes of Elon Musk talking about how these killer robots are going to destroy all of humanity. But at the same time, we have these individuals who are also investing. So Elon Musk is investing large amounts of money in AI and machine learning, as is Microsoft, and they're even collaborating on some of the AI. We are also seeing some very exciting times. I remember when Gary Kasparov was beaten by IBM's Deep Blue. It is kind of an exciting moment, and really we've now reached another very exciting moment from game playing, where the strategy game Go, we now actually have a world champion, which is actually artificial intelligence. And the AlphaGo, what is interesting with the current world champions feedback on, AlphaGo was the fact that it was doing godlike moves that were not interpretable by even the world champion. And he would not understand why it would make certain moves. And what is also exceedingly interesting is the fact that this program actually learned to play Go from scratch. It did not require any domain knowledge to actually be programmed into it. We also, of course, the reason why we hear these kinds of titles is the fact that there are these currently fictional movies that have been created to raise the awareness of the downside of AI. A movie that's been doing the rounds for a couple of years now on YouTube that talks about killer bots, right? These little drones that can fit on the palm of a human being and can drive, fly at high speed, moving stochastically, towards its target, which is a human, landing on the forehead and essentially blowing a hole through their skull to destroy the brain and kill the individual. And when we think about the technologies that get involved here, they're not things that are that far away, right? So, I mean, we have drones that are flying around. We do have face recognition even on our fairly cheap mobile phones today. And the movie was suggesting that, at that point where, in the future that they were filming this, that for $1 million, you could get a full bucket load or a plane load of these very dangerous weapons, right? And it's kind of a scary thought that if this kind of weaponry gets into the hands of the wrong people, it could cause a great problem for us. At the same time, we also hear about the positive side of AI, the fact that it's actually getting better at diagnosing disease than radiologists, human radiologists, or identifying heart disease, also using convolutional neural networks, as you would imagine, to actually be able to identify issues with the heart, again, analyzing imaging data in healthcare. And there are questions around whether doctors are could be obsolete. And of course, we all know people like yourselves and us who've been in the industry for a while and have also been into academic research. We know that this is, of course, not true, that doctors are going to be obsolete in the very short term. However, what we are seeing is that AI can be very useful in a number of applications. And what's exciting in some ways is the fact that we are seeing applications of robots that we would have otherwise grown up, at least I would have grown up watching on Star Wars and other Hollywood movies, are actually becoming a reality slowly too. So, Pepper is actually a bot that has been used in the retail scenario in shop floors and has been shown to give a positive upturn in sales as a result. Here's another autonomous vehicle that's delivering pizza, which is warmer and quicker delivered because it's actually being cooked on the way. And so with this backdrop, in 2012, after spending 22 years studying and working in universities in the United Kingdom, I moved back to India and set up Tatras, with the intention of providing machine learning and AI as a service, specifically in intellectual property generation for startups and mid-sized companies in the US, UK, and Canada. And so the kinds of projects that we worked on, I don't have a lot of time to go into detail on these projects, but just to give you an idea of the kinds of projects we work on, we've got power generation from wind farms, predicting how much power is going to get generated. We actually helped a wind farm in Europe improve the accuracy of the prediction to within the bounds that were acceptable to the grid that they were pushing the power into. We've worked with a startup in New York to build a bond trading platform using machine learning and creating liquidity within the bond trading market. We have built our own platform for cryptocurrency trading, where we are predicting the price of different cryptocurrencies and making trading decisions autonomously. And this kind of, an interesting space because of the wealth of data that is available, even compared to what standard stock markets would provide. There's a lot more data that's actually available in the cryptocurrency space. We built a chatbot authoring platform for a startup of, startup in California. The founders being linguists, but not knowing how to actually convert their linguistic capabilities into artificial intelligence. We built a platform that allowed them to take human-to-human chat and convert that into much more complex chatbots than what we are usually faced with when we deal with chatbots that are created, using the bot framework or, the equivalent of that. What I find very interesting, obviously, with my background in academia is the applications of artificial intelligence to learning. And I think, the COVID, for all the ills that it has brought to us with, the deaths and so on that are taking place, it's also always brought positives, right? And just like technology, that always has some ills and some positives, I think every event in our lives has some positives and negatives. And I think what, COVID has done is to make us realize how bad we are at being able to teach at a distance. And there is a huge opportunity here of leveraging technology. Some of you may have already watched the recent movie that's doing the rounds on Netflix right now called Social. It's to do with social media. I can't remember the name of it, but it's to do with how social media is impacting human behavior today and actually impacting our thought process. The same way, the same ideas that these large social media companies are using to get control of us, rather than using it in a negative way to increase revenue. Why can't we use the same technology to understand and get a deeper understanding of whether a student is understanding the topics that we are actually teaching them? And adaptive learning, and prior to that, other names were used, to define the space. Essentially, what you're trying to do is create a student model that can understand and represent the level of understanding and proficiency of a student in different topics that you're teaching them. And as a result, create a personalized pathway for every student as they consume content that is available to them, right? And so rather than thinking of education online as being exactly the same model that it always has been, for the last 400 years, where a teacher stands up in front of a class and teaches them, why can't we create an on-demand education platform that understands the state of the proficiency of a student and provides them with content that is most relevant and consumable by the student based on their understanding. We've also worked with some larger organizations, retail stores that have thousands of stores across America, looking at what is the mix of products that they should be using. And again, using machine learning, bringing in a lot of data that's open and accessible, available online, to enhance the data that the business has itself, to understand the clientele within a shop, and to figure out what would be the right stock levels of different products, and what would be the mix of those products that should exist with the store, is an interesting problem that we worked on and provided some AI-based assistance to these retailers. And then, of course, we are talking about social media, and Pinterest, for example, has a social recommendation algorithm. There was a startup in India that was attempting to create a Pinterest for India, and we actually helped them build recommenders for their scenario as well. And so our focus is very much on startups in different domains, creating differentiators and intellectual property that it's very difficult to create, right? Today, we face a challenge in the space of AI and machine learning, where it's difficult for us to know who really understands this technology, right? There are lots of people on LinkedIn. India probably has more people on LinkedIn that are data scientists than any other country. Most of them are actually just Python programmers who think that creating solutions is to use scikit-learn and apply an algorithm and copy and paste code from Kaggle. I get this response from a lot of people that actually come to work for me who were earlier looking at Kaggle as the nirvana of data science, that actually applying machine learning to solve a true business problem is very different from being able to copy and paste code and create a solution in Kaggle, right? And so what I want to kind of suggest here is that with all of you in academia, there is a responsibility on us to actually look at the next generation and really define what our role really is in the state of Punjab, right? I'm really glad that this conference is taking place in Punjab. It's, obviously a state that I have a great affinity to, and to be speaking to at a conference in Amritsar, even if it's virtual, gives me a lot of pleasure. And the reason why I talk about the role for Punjab here is that we've seen that in Punjab there is we've always had a great affinity for the country that we are part of, where we have always provided whatever the country lacked, and whether it was food or whether it was security. And so we are in a situation where China and America are way ahead of us in artificial intelligence. And the truth of the matter is that we are way behind them. And another of my favorite movies, I just remembered the name of the movie that I was referring to on Netflix was Social Dilemma. So if you haven't watched it, please do, because that's a great example of how social media companies are using machine learning and artificial intelligence. So another of my favorite movies is this one called The Martian, where, again, a piece of fiction where an astronaut gets left behind on Mars, And essentially, he needs to now figure out how he's going to survive to till the next mission to Mars. And this is a great quote that says, at some point, everything goes south on you. And you can either accept that or you can get to work, right? And I think the people of Punjab have always done that. So the Green Revolution came from Punjab. Unfortunately, since then, there's been a great amount of neglect. And we find that, our position from an economy of the state, from being one of the richest states, we are actually slipping down that ladder and have been doing so for the last 15 years approximately. And we find that there is a lot of issues in agriculture today, partly as a result of us being such a strong participant within the Green Revolution. And, one thing that the state had a great deal of was Chardi Kala. And I think, our children are now standing by the roadside looking for something that was ingrained within us. And the question is, how do we actually get to work and bring back that Chardi Kala? And, if we look at the technology revolution that took place in the late 1990s in the rest of the country, where Bangalore and Hyderabad and various other cities like Pune have benefited from, the state of Punjab has been left behind there, right? And the question is, how do we actually get on and solve this problem? We have a great opportunity again in the AI and machine learning space. And with that in mind, what we started was a foundation called Sabudh Foundation, which is based in Mohali. We've been very lucky to get connected with a lot of universities around the Punjab area. And the objective of starting this not-for-profit organization in 2018, when I was actually invited to teach on a course at the Indian School of Business in Mohali, I used that opportunity to go and meet with a lot of universities and students, engineering colleges. And what we found was that there were, students that were very keen on learning, but at the same time, they didn't have opportunities to really learn the truly, applied skill sets. And also, I think I'm a strong believer, having gone through that process as an academic for, almost 15 years in the UK. I believe that the 8 years of exposure that I've had in industry have actually made me a better teacher. And so, we would welcome even academic staff getting involved in Sabudh, more from a perspective of learning. You've already got the theory, but learning how to apply that theory is something that we would love to engage with other universities and colleges as well. So the purpose of Sabudh was dual. One was to actually provide training of the highest caliber available in AI and machine learning throughout the world. And the second was to get people to realize that AI is not just about bad things or making companies richer, or hooking customers into social media platforms as we see in Social Dilemma. But there are lots of applications of AI that are going to be essential for our very existence, right? And if you look at the sustainability goals that the UN has defined, the 17 sustainability goals, a lot of those can be impacted by artificial intelligence and machine learning. I mean, you take a simple case of even equal access to education. I think, I've already talked about the adaptive learning platform that we created in Sabudh, that goes partly towards that. So starting with education, we put together a syllabus that is second to no syllabus in the world. We got a lot of help from my network of academics. So the deep learning course, for example, that we are teaching is kindly given to us by Professor Bhiksha Raj at Carnegie Mellon University. And, a lot of people look at me and say, do you think that we can actually teach courses that are in Carnegie Mellon to students in, colleges of India? And I say, of course we can, because, I've seen myself that, if we spend enough time with the students, we engage with them, they can consume any content, and they can be just as good as anybody else anywhere in the world. So, the first thing that we have to create is a self-belief in the students that they can actually consume and engage with mathematics. They can engage with machine learning and deep learning, and can compete in the rest of the world, right? One of the products that we built in 3 months for a startup based out of California, using students from Punjab, that were hired through the Sabud program, uh, you know, has made Bosch look up and say, how did you do that in 3 months? We've actually been trying to do it in 2 years, right? So the Chardi Kala that we have, in Punjab and in the country as a whole, I think needs to be brought to be noticed in the rest of the world. We've created this platform that provides courses. It also is very focused on passion projects. And these passion projects are projects where students work on real world problems, like looking at road scene analysis. And I'll show some of those examples. Since 2018, we are now in our 5th batch. And thanks to Corona, we've turned it into a positive. We actually have increased our batch size. We've doubled our batch size to 70. Rather than the 35, because 35 people is all we could accommodate in our office in Mohali. We've now taken on 70 students that are doing a virtual program with us. And there are students from Nigeria, Canada, US, Germany, and New Zealand, in addition to the rest of the country, and of course, Punjab. And, I'm very excited about the way this has gone. We brought the best of people to talk to them, through webinars, even mentor them on some of those passion projects. So, for example, Pratibha Mugi here, who did a webinar, is now part of IBM research, and she's actually mentoring our students on projects as well. And of course, again, as with the courses that we are running, which are completely free of cost for the students, and the mentoring that we provide, which is also free of cost, so is the webinar series, which is available on YouTube to anybody to consume. And we're getting the best of people, like Nasir Rajput, who is a colleague of mine from Warwick, gave a fantastic talk about the brilliant work that they're doing in image analysis in medicine. And what are the projects that we are working on? Sabud, power generation, not from wind farms, but from solar panels. And, we've been very lucky to be associated with Kalgidhar Trust that have a big project on taking their schools and their universities off the grid. We are looking at projects like on the left here, where we are doing automated translation of Indian Sign Language to text. There's an interesting project that we're just about to start, which is to do with face blindness, creating smart glasses with face recognition and contextualization of the face, so that people with face blindness, where they don't recognize faces out of context, can actually live a normal life. Eco monitoring with ICER, with one of my colleagues from ICER Mohali, where we're looking at bird calls and trying to understand what that bird call is actually meaning. We are looking very lucky to be engaged with the traffic management, traffic police in Punjab, looking at managing traffic. We've used drones to collect and analyze images to improve the quality of safety of these crossroads in Mohali. These are 2 examples from Mohali itself. We've done a little bit of work where we actually did some counting of kinu fruit in PAU. We also looked at imaging and analyzing different treatments that take place of wheat after harvesting, of rice after it's harvested, to see the impact on wheat growth after that. And a bunch of other projects that have social impact, right? Now, in addition to that, what we've also been doing is working with students, young students from schools, helping them to create ideas and compete in international projects, competitions, where Educolab and Enviro Farming were 2 examples where they went and competed in Singapore and China and did very well. They got to the finals of the competition, which is Southeast Asia competition on the use of AI in innovative ideas. We've also contributed to the establishment of the data hives in ISA Mohali, where they have a fantastic group of individuals who are into cosmology and climate data and astrophysics, things that I don't understand about. But of course, all of these have in common one fact, that there's a lot of data that's out there. And so we brought an amazing group of people who have agreed to be mentors and advisors to the data hives in Mohali.